consideration of minutes? None. Public comment. So I'm just letting everybody know that the board is going to discuss the addition construction piece, and I'm going to allow public comment after the board has their discussion. So if anybody, if you have a question you want to ask and wait till then, that's fine. Or you can ask it now. Just try not to be, talk person, address the chair, come up to the microphone and state your name and the town. So, anybody? Public comment?
About the construction?
Yeah, anything.
Well, I don't think your mic's on.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We better turn them all on.
How's that? Yeah, public comment is anything.
Okay.
So, yep, go ahead, come up to the mic, please.
Hello. Hi, so my name is Lana Hall. I'm from Wales. And I have some points I just want to address and see if you guys can give me answers, okay? So first of all, with the new addition going on, the grades from 2 to 8 going to be on one playground?
No.
You thinking there's going to be no mixing?
No, there'll be two different playgrounds, two different start and stop times, two different entrances,
What about lunchtime?
two different lunches. There'll be,
But there will be one cafeteria /
well,
gym.
one cafeteria, but the other cafeteria in the new addition will be only for 5 through 8.
So there'll be two
So
cafeterias?
it's like a resource room, a big resource cafeteria gymnasium piece. It's like at the primary school where
Okay.
they use it for gym and cafeteria.
So is it going to be a new school? So this is going to be the middle school now, right?
No,
Let's-
there's already cafeteria at the middle school,
So is the middle school going to stay where middle school
Yeah.
is? So,
but it's going to be 2 through 4.
okay, I think we're talking about two different things. So what I'm saying, the new additions that's going in, you're going to move the middle school to the new addition,
Yes.
and the old addition, the old building, going to be for little kids because it
Yes.
was made for little kids technically, right? Okay, so the new cafeteria is going to in a new addition?
Yeah. Well,
It's going to be
it's
separate
a-
cafeteria for both
Yes.
places?
Yes.
But there's two. Okay, and so in the new addition, where they're going to be middle school addition, right?
Yeah.
Is the cafeteria going to be / gym?
Yes.
So that means the 2 hours that people having lunches, there's going to be no gym access at all for the middle school kids. Is that correct?
Well, whatever the schedule
Well,
works.
that's just, right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
so the 2 hours out of the teacher who teaches gym, he will be not able to do his job, right?
That happens now, so
Yeah.
kids are at recess or at lunch, and then it trades. So during that time,
So now you have to do 4 different schedules. Is that correct?
yeah, so it happens now existing in our middle school where their gym doesn't happen while we're having lunch and recess. So that, during our schedule, that's kind of how that works.
Okay. From the plans that I've seen, the area that the school goes on is going to be on top of the tart area that kids using right now for play and recess and stuff. It looks like it's really, really shrunk and looks like it's taken. Where are you guys putting the extra space for the kids to be outside, especially if you're trying to keep them separate from 8 to 2?
Well, the new 2 to 4 playground will actually be behind the existing school. Instead of being out front where it is now, it'll be behind the existing school. And the new playground will be behind, well, yeah. It'll be behind the new addition. And it'll be completely separate. There'll be a hard playground area there for the older kids, just like there is now.
The same size?
Yeah, same size.
Okay.
The pictures are out in the foyer, I think.
It was not really clear from some of them. It just looked like it was sitting right on top of it, and was no,
Yeah.
the pictures were not showing. Okay, hang on a second. And if this gets turned down, is the 5th grade gonna go back, or is it gonna stay in the school?
It'll probably stay as is.
So it'll stay as is,
It'll
and
stay as is.
Carrie
we'll-
Rico only has what 2 grades?
Yeah.
does it seem like not really evened out?
But I think we're gonna have some discussions.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're definitely gonna have to,
Yeah.
you know,
Because right now I know like the addition, adding the fifth grade to the middle school creates really bad bus problems for the people to get in and off. Like that's usually creates really hard pickup times and
well,
things like that.
there'll be another entrance added to that existing site. And it'll be a different
But I'm
traffic
talking
path.
if it's not passed
Oh,
through,
yeah.
like if it's
Yeah.
got cut.
Right,
You know what I mean? So like that's why like keeping the fifth grade is really hard for the teachers
Right.
as it is, and
Yeah.
the staff they are understaffed as are. What about the house music and art related stuff? There is no addition to that. Is there anything for
Yeah.
that in addition?
yep, there will be its own program in the new addition, and the program will stay with the smaller kids, and we'll have a space for that, right, Katie?
I mean, we'd have to look at the plans. Do you have the more we don't, this doesn't really narrow down what the space is.
Yeah,
For which one do you want?
for music and art.
So there's, right by the cafeterium piece, there's a music room and an art room. And the art room actually has a, wing they can actually go right outside and do art outside or music outside. And there's like an outdoor classroom, area, but that is kind of opposite of like the office area.
Okay. So apparently you guys' microphones are not hooked up. People cannot hear you. Just so you know.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think, other than concern from the I talked to a lot of teachers who teach in middle school, and they have. First of all, there is definitely no ed tech, so they really understaffed. This year they have been covering every prep time they have. They've been covering for other teachers because they don't have staff. That include recess duties and the duty for the lunches. So with your trying to make a plan now, not just within the school as is, but adding another one and 2 different times, like, is there gonna be extra straining for the teachers and stuff like
Well,
that? So
as far as the staffing issue goes, I mean, Kathy can speak to that. I mean, every school district in the state is running into the same thing as
not
far
as bad as here. I know other people in
Well,
other schools
I
are
know
not as
plenty of
bad.
other schools, and we've talked to other boards that have run into this same problem all over the state.
But doing this addition might create even more strain already.
We don't believe so.
Okay. All
Yes.
right.
Staff's gonna go with.
Yeah, the staff's gonna go, we're not losing any staff.
Okay. All right. But if addition doesn't go in, your 5th grade stays there and the staff stays as are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your
No
answers.
problem?
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you. Anybody else, or you wanna wait until the board has their discussion and I'll open it up then? All right? Thank you. Petitions and communications? None? Reports, superintendent's report.
Okay, check the mic. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So this is my first meeting. It's great to see people coming out and wanting to ask questions. I really appreciate that. I'm going to have a couple of items. First, I'm going to cover the Siemens update. We have a contract that we're looking to sign. I want to start just to give a FYI on looking at a nutrition director position. And so I'm going to start off with saying what's been going on. And I want to thank the central office staff that getting to know them, getting quickly to update me on what's going on in the district. Everybody's been very welcoming, very informative. And I feel like I've already been doing the job for a while in the sense of everybody really being good about giving information. So it's been wonderful. Been visited Sharon over in Wales. We had a wonderful coffee discussion and met some people that also work there, her dad included. So really good discussion. Met with Dr. Kane and Selectman Mark Duquette to talk about Sabatis, and then meeting with Litchfield tomorrow to talk to Kelly and possible selectmen as well. And so getting to know the 3 towns, really important to understanding where where all these three communities come together for one district. And then John and I spent some time with Maine School Management doing workman's comp review. So we visited, and I especially went to Libby Tozier and Sabatis Primary, so I could really see the importance of this addition and what are the needs at those two schools. And so it was good to go through that with them and from safety viewpoint on our workman's comp. So I really enjoyed that. With the Siemens update, I just want to make sure the board knows where we are with the Siemens contract. Will probably be signed tomorrow. So just a review with the public, we're in phase 3 with Siemens. Siemens works with us a lot about energy efficiencies and making sure we're getting the most we can from our buildings and how they work and operate. And so you can see the update here because we had a presentation in May to go over the need for boilers and the need for replacements and moving away from fuel, which is, as we know, expensive, and going into propane tanks. And so there's a lot of work being done with Siemens to do that and replace windows at Cary Ricker. I think, Robbie, you and I talked about this morning. So I want to give you an update of the finance contract because Siemens does work and then they help finance it for us. And so right now, we were originally estimated for the work at $2,881,000. Now the firm costs, because like everyone's dealing with materials and rising costs because it's hard to get materials and then labor, it is now at $2,136,848. Then you can see there are two parts of this contract. There's the propane contract with Dead River. So Dead River provides the tanks and also subcontracts to put the tanks in and get all the work done. And that was quoted originally at $184,000. It's now at $205,973. Our energy performance contract, which is through Siemens, was at $1.8 million, $1,897,000. It's now at $1,927,927. At your presentation, they talked about our contribution to the work would be around $64,000. It is now at $70,000. I want to get my notes, have it right. $70,500. We save annually changing from fuel to propane around $99,000 for what you budget for fuel and what we'll be paying for propane. So that's why it's called a performance, is you look at how are you performing to offset your annual costs that you contribute to the project. And they worked hard with us over the last 48 hours to really hold our costs down. We met with them several times, Jonathan Varney and Jessica, the business manager. We really pushed hard that we're not going to pay more than what we had thought when I came on was $70,000 annually, and really worked hard with them to understand that as taxpayers and as a board, the assumption was this is what the cost is going to be, and to keep escalating it because we have not signed our paperwork because they did not have their final numbers was unfair to all of you and the communities. So they have met that and got an email only about an hour ago confirming that our loan will be 17 years at 4.29% interest rate, and our contribution to the project will be $70,500 annually. So Siemens did work with us to cover some of these escalating costs with what they do for getting us our equipment, working with Dead River to help us. So that's where we are, and I want to make sure you knew what we were doing, and we're going to move forward with it. And Libby Tozier will be the first project done by opening of school so that they're ready to go. Okay. So I want to make sure you have that.
So Katie, have we heard anything back, Jonathan, you might know, about anybody giving us a price for fuel oil?
For fuel oil, we've heard, I mean, a lot of companies, even big ones like Dead River, are not commenting too much on distillates right now. So K1 diesel, number 2 fuel, because of the volatility in the market right now. I did, based on a certain gallon amount that we had last year, I did get a price from Winter Fuel. I'd have to refer back to my notes, but we were looking at $3.98, I
Yeah.
believe, a gallon.
And what were we paying last year?
$1.96.
Yeah.
And it was 430 something, 436 rings a bell for K1, which, as you know, at 2 schools, because of the outside oil tank,
Right.
you have to do a 50-50 ratio to prevent the oil line from sludging and from the fuel tank freezing. And then diesel, I can't remember off the top of my head, but in essence, everything doubled.
Yeah.
And with working with Dead River and allowing us to go, by going district-wide with propane, because propane the price is dictated off of usage and not market volatility, we can get a tremendously lower rate. We're actually going to pay in the first 2 years less per gallon than we're paying right now for number 2. And over the course of the many years to come, again, we are self-reliant because we're basically dictating our price off of our usage, which would be high
Right.
because we're a whole district, rather than relying on the market that can basically dictate our costs. We have nothing we can do about it.
All right, thank you. Is that it, Katie?
Yeah, and well, one more thing.
Yeah.
And I do want to say Jonathan has been working really hard to reach out to other maintenance operation directors in other school departments to say, where are we? What are you thinking? Talking to companies, what are you thinking? Should we lock in? Should we wait? And reaching out to the towns to see if they want to come in on our bidding. So we are collecting information from the towns to include them in our bids. So we want to make sure we knew that. The other big conversation, when you come in as a new superintendent and you're asking, what's really working well and what are things for improvement, one of the big items is a nutrition director. It is highly unusual not to have a nutrition director. And so for people who don't know, Kathy Martin, the assistant superintendent, has been serving in that role. And it's not cost effective of her role also being the nutrition director and everything she has to cover under assistant superintendent. It also, having a nutrition director helps us be in line with federal requirements. There are tons of reports that have to be done to make sure we're being highly efficient. And we want to be running a nutrition department that is in the black and not one in the red that each year we're trying to make up for. And part of that is we need that specialty person to really be focused on how are our menus. Are we using the USDA food in the most manageable way with our resources? And so we have been talking a lot about that around how can we do it without raising the budget, and that's what we're committed to. We're not going to add a position that is something that's going to need to be supported. We're looking at the food service department as a whole to say what can we do to support this position. And so I'm talking to the union support service folks around working together, and so we have a meeting coming up to discuss that, talking to Kathy about her role, talking about what the managers are doing, what the assistant managers are doing, what our food workers are doing, to make sure that can we afford it within the budget and not raise the budget. So I will be back with you in August with a proposal to add a nutrition director and how we're going to do that to be neutral, budget neutral. But I want you to know that we're working on that. And that's the last thing.
So, just to let people know
Yep.
that the food service account is an income account, right? But
Right.
the problem lies is we can't charge enough for the food to pay for the kitchen staff, the product and everything else, because it's mandated what we charge for food
Right.
by the federal government. So, and I know right now we're getting free lunch.
Correct.
So, but also people should know that you should still fill out the forms for free and reduced, because that number goes to help fund our Title I.
I don't want.
And
Lots of programs.
Lots of programs,
lots
yeah.
of programs, so.
It's in your funding formula,
Yeah,
economically
right.
disadvantaged.
So
So
we try to make sure that people are still filling out those forms, even if you don't qualify, you should fill them out so we can get that information back and then send it out. Okay?
Right.
Any other questions for Katie? None?
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
about the propane?
Yeah,
Did I hear correctly, you said you want to start this putting propane in Lily Children's School?
it
Yeah.
already is.
But we plan on closing it up.
Well, the boiler didn't pass inspection. We lost that boiler this spring.
right.
So we have to replace that boiler. We don't have an option there.
Okay.
And that,
There'll be a new boiler in the school that we plan on closing, right?
well, it's a building, though, that Litchfield
Right.
will make a decision on.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to put this.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so moving on, no assistant superintendent's report, no financial report, no administrators, no student rep, but we are gonna work on that this fall, so we can get another one. Other reports, no other reports. All right, 6.1, old business. Discussion of the August 9th, 2022 building construction referendum. And like I said, I'm going to open it up to board members. And then when we're done, I'll open it up to the public so we can have a discussion.
Do you want John to start?
Yes, John, could you give us a background? Do you have handouts you want to pass out, Katie?
Yeah, so what I asked
Okay.
Jonathan to do is, many of you saw the flyer of the needs at both Libby Tozier and Spatus Primary. So Jonathan's been looking at things that were not on the list to see if we can get some feedback around our roofs and things like that. So he's going to do an update of work that's been done since we last heard a presentation.
All right, good evening. Great to see you guys again. Like Katie just said, I did have some discussion with some contractors, some water quality experts, and some asbestos experts on the status of some of our schools and some concerns we do have. We were of the mindset or the thought that the roofs were going to need some attention, but we didn't have any specifics. So the first line item is Genie Roofing. I had them come out. And they were great. They came out very quickly, as I had asked, and just to do an overall assessment of the two roofs at Libby Tozier and the other one at Spatus Primary. And before I get started, I do have all of the reports in detail if you guys do want to see them. If not, just raise your hand if you want to see one. I'll be happy to pass that out. So Steve went over and looked at the roofs, and he said that Libby Tozier's entire roof should be replaced within the next 2 years. Spatus Primary has newer sections of the roof, which is great, and those are still under warranty, so we don't need to touch those. But the additional parts of the roof that they have not touched previously do need to be replaced, and the cost estimates are broken down a little bit there in total price. So we're talking $325,000 as an estimate for Libby Tozier, $150,000 for Spatus Primary. Now, again, if you want a detailed breakdown, he'll show a map of each part of the roof and what was wrong, and you can see that in more detail. Now, that's today's, or I should say today's, that was a price as of middle of July. That's a general estimate. He goes up there and he starts picking that roof apart. Those numbers could go up. If we decide we want to hold off on this and we do this in 2 years, he said, just out of good practice, tack on 15 to 20% of those numbers just due to material and labor markup, the direction that that's been going with the market right now. I think 15 to 20 is even conservative, to be honest. So, again, general numbers, but he did put eyes on the roof and said that those two things need to be addressed. As far as asbestos to report Libby Tozier, so every 3 years we have to have what's called a 3-year AHERA, AHERA, executive summary report. And in schools that have asbestos or we believe could have asbestos, have to have those done every 3 years. Well, we coincidentally had one this year. Nothing came back for Libby Tozier.
The Academy building, though, does have asbestos in it. Now, there's no students in that building, but just so we're aware, there is some in there. So I reached out to AQM, which is Air Quality Management. Randy over there, he is the one who does those 3-year inspections. I said, hey, Randy, we have some concerns about what's under the carpet, what's in the walls, what's in the ceilings, what's wrapped in the pipes. I know the 3-year inspection didn't come up with anything, but I'd like to do another quick look over and make sure we don't have any asbestos in there. So he did a whole walkthrough of the building, looked at pipe wrapping, ceiling tiles, the whole bit, and he said, hey, the only thing I'm really concerned with due to age is the ceiling tiles. Took the test results came back. I do have those available if you want to see them, and it all came back negative. So that is good. No asbestos that we know of in Libby Tozier. PFAS in Libby Tozier. So I think I'd reported on it back in May that there was no detectable PFAS in the water at Libby Tozier, which is awesome. Again, it's a yearly inspection. That could change next year. Now, the biggest thing, and I just talked with Chuck, who is our water quality expert, he's concerned that even though we're at passable limits now, the EPA has strong talks about lowering the acceptable tolerance, parts per billion. I have all the documentation there. I'm not a water quality expert, but the acceptable limit of PFAS in the water, the EPA is looking to drop that limit, basically making it a smaller margin to be in an acceptable level of PFAS. Now, the concern specifically with Libby Tozier is that it's a private well, so any PFAS issues we have in the water are our problem. If we are on a school, or any of our schools that are on public utilities, if there's PFAS in the water, it's the water district's problem to solve, because that's where we're getting our water from. So another good benefit of being on public water is certain water quality issues that we run into, we don't absorb the issues or absorb the responsibility of taking care of it. He's concerned that next year, because there were trace amounts of PFAS just within an acceptable limit, he's afraid that when the EPA ultimately brings down that acceptable tolerance, we're going to be running into issues. And we already have a tiny boiler room because we have so many water treatment, systems in there now. We might have to make some big decisions on, in the event that comes up. Those are the biggest 3 updates that I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions or would like to see any of the reports or anything like that. Yeah.
I know you've done the water quality at Libby Tozier.
Yep.
And Carrie Ricker's right up the street.
Correct.
What's the water quality there
Overall, or in regards to PFAS?
in regards to PFAS?
PFAS also tested negative. Again, certain trace amounts. I don't know the exact numbers, but I do have the reports if you'd like to see them. So trace amounts again. But that's another school that is on a well. So again, any water quality issue that we could run into, ultimately our responsibility. The better thing about Carrie Ricker is our boiler room is substantially larger and has more room to, house a PFAS treatment system. I've been in Libby Tozier's boiler room every day this week and checking things out, and it is tight in there, and trying to fit something in there would be quite a challenge.
Now, what about asbestos at Carrie Ricker?
That school was built in 1997, so we don't have any concern there. And I have documentation for our other schools that say, to the best of our knowledge from the architects, that there was no asbestos-used materials, and that, according to the EPA, is sufficient enough not to have that asbestos testing done. We have it done at Sabatis Primary School, and again, the 3-year report came back negative again, and we also have it done over at the high school.
Jonathan, quick question. What about the lead levels? Because I know that you had given us a report earlier this spring about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so again, and for those who haven't heard, there was some traceable levels of lead at Libby Tozier, some tests taken back in October. Again, the lab that we can do these tests are not opening samples or not taking samples right now for lead in school testing. They'll open back up in September. Partly due to their influx of test samples, but also because we have to test the water with a correct population of people in the building to show adequate water flow and an accurate sample. So I've been in contact with Chuck. He's keeping me up to date. If he hears anything new from the state and from A&L Laboratories, who won the RFP to do the testing, he'll notify me right away. We have all of our inventories for every fixture that needs to be tested already lined up and sent to him. We already have our test kits available and ready to go, so we don't have to wait on those. We just cannot physically take samples of the water and send them out. My hope is that anything that does come back positive with lead is only at the fixture, and then all you have to do is replace the fixture. If we have lead leaching from pipes further inside the building, we could be running into some bigger issues because we have to trace where that's coming from, and that I almost think is nearly impossible. That we're talking about ripping pipes out of the wall. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
I have,
Yep.
Could you just clarify, because at first you said no PFAS, and then you said trace. Is it no or?
I apologize. We didn't test above the limits to allow, like, basically make us put a water treatment system for PFAS in. So we do have trace amounts, but below the limit that the EPA sets to affect quality of health and
There's trace.
trace. Yeah, and I do have all those results available upon request.
Okay, if I could skip back up to the roof.
Yep.
Do you have a figure for the square footage of Libby Toja?
If I can look at that, I have a map and everything of it. Yeah, I probably do.
And I guess Sabata's primary as well. Yeah. $325,000 for a roof seems like, I mean, you could build a whole house for that.
Well, I can tell you the roof on Oak Hill was $1 million.
Right, that's my concern, is if we start going into Libby Tozier, are we gonna find other things that we have to fix like we did at Oak Hill?
So I'll provide you with these. I don't actually believe I can see square footage, but I can certainly get you those numbers right away. It wouldn't be too hard to get. I'm just trying to look and see if I can see anything on here that shows the scale.
And it doesn't look like they provided a total.
No, it does not, but I'm sure I can get that from them. They're very familiar with our roofs as they do regular scheduled maintenance checkups on our roofs, so they're very familiar with our roofs. I'm sure I could reach out to Steve and get those numbers
Yeah,
for
if
us.
you don't mind, I was just curious to get a square footage, dollar per square footage.
Sure. Yeah, and specifically too with Sabata's primary, where certain sections of the roof do not need to be replaced because they're still under warranty. I believe, and I'd have to double check the numbers, but if you look at the map, I believe section 1 is under warranty, and we're
Is
talking.
this the new portion or the old portion of the school, or is it?
This is an accurate representation of the school as we see it right now.
Right, so it's only a portion. Which section needs to be?
Yep. Let me.
I assume the
So for
older
Sabata's
section.
primary? Is what we're talking about?
Correct.
So Sabata's primary is sections 4, 5, 6, and 7. So if
So it's the older half.
it's the older half,
Yeah.
correct. So section 1 back this way is where like the playground and sections 4, 5, 6, 7 are sort of like the main entrance
Gotcha.
in that general area. And again, I have all this, for anyone that wants to look at it.
Thank you.
Sure.
The
Oh.
the map, does that include for Libby Tozier, the senior son of the academy too?
It doesn't. It does not. No. The senior center or the academy, it looks like a relatively new roof. I can't tell if it's real. I don't know if anyone can help me with this. If it's real tile, or if it's like a rubber or a synthetic, but it looks relatively new. I don't know if anyone knows. But it does not. No, in this report, it does not include.
So is the roof on Libby Tozier, is that a membrane roof?
On Libby Tozier, it's a stone covered, like a crushed stone covered, and then below that, I believe, is a membrane. But they would take all of that crushed stone off and put a similar style roof as the high school, which I'm no roof expert, but and Steve could touch on this much better, and I can get more details if you'd like of the specifics of what they would put in there. But
The roof on Libby Tozier is, it's insulation, membrane, tar, and crushed rock.
Did you
And
ask
then-
about less expensive alternative options as far as material?
for the roof,
For the roof, the membrane is the cheapest that we've found.
yeah, I could certainly inquire. I don't know what other roofing materials other
I know when
than
we did Oak Hill, that was the cheapest roof that
okay.
they
And
were
he-
able to put it on in 20-foot wide sheets, 80 feet long.
yeah, he said it would be a very similar style to the
Yeah.
Oak Hill High School roof.
Jonathan, may I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Coming back
to the lead issue at Libby Tozier, what is the plan for students as they re-enter in the fall?
So currently, right now, over specifically at Libby Tozier, we have I'm trying to think the name, water coolers. The big 5-gallon like you can see in the back corner there. Dispense like an office cooler. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is, but anyways, we have water that we are cycling every week. New jugs coming in every week. We have done that since we put out the public notice. There's locks over the water fountains, similar to when we were here with COVID and having to shut those down. There's signs outside on the water spigots because, again, not a typical drinking source, but a kid could go fill their water bottle up without even knowing. And we did alert the academy building as well. So come school year, again, things will still be shut down. Water will still be provided to all the students and the staff. As far as cooking and using the water, it is the suggestion of our water quality expert and the EPA and all the readings you'll see on lead in school is to do anywhere from a 30-second to a 2-minute flush. Basically, let the water run. If you do have lead right at the source or right at the fixture, it will flush out. If you have it further down due to a leaching pipe, it will, again, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, flush that out, and then you can use it, as safe as you can. And again, we don't know what fixtures. There was 12 fixtures tested in October. We don't know what other ones are, if any, that have lead, but again, we'll find that out, as quickly as we have the testing open again.
So, Jonathan, the gym cafeteria floor at Sabatis?
Yep. Yeah, I've looked into quite a few companies. And I keep getting shot down. I tried LaJoy Brothers. They said we don't do that kind of work. We subcontract a lot of that work out to soundproof water systems, I believe it's called. They do some of the big projects like Colby College that's going on right now, all those dorms. They do all the foundation work. So I thought, okay, great company. I called them. They said, no, that's not really, call a smaller foundation company. So I tried some locals, haven't heard back yet. I even tried all the TC Hafford basement systems because they do foundation crack repair. Just enough, I just want to have someone come out and look at it and get an honest opinion of what we're looking at. I did have a flooring guy come in just to repair some flooring tile because there was a tripping hazard, and he looked underneath it a little bit, and he said, I don't really want to pull too many more of these tiles up because I'm afraid we're gonna go into a mess. But basically, there's a couple large stress fractures that are causing heaving. You can see it in the floor tiles. So I'm still working with as many contractors as I can find just to get someone out there and look at it and get an honest answer at what we're looking like for cost.
So I guess my next question would be, what is the plan? We're going to have to use that building at least until 2025.
Right.
Will that floor last that long?
I would like to refer to a comment from a professional, but I don't have one yet. So I think it will. I think it will last us like 2-3 years if we keep doing the Band-Aid fixes to the floor tiles. That's going to be our biggest headache. It's just having to constantly replace those. However, the reason for the stress crack is water infiltration, and we can't see underneath there and where that water is coming from and how bad or how quickly it's deteriorating other parts. Part of me wonders if a engineer should look at it to also look at the structural integrity of the whole building while he's there. I don't know. That could be something that the board discusses if that's the route they'd like to go. But when you have structural cracks in a foundation floor of a school, it makes sense maybe to look at the very least, the source of the problem and maybe at other parts of the building as well. So there's a couple routes we could go. We could go engineer. We could go a specific foundation repair concrete company, that sort of side of it. Again, I'm open to doing either. I can get both out there, whatever you guys think might be the best option.
Another question. Have they done any air quality testing at Sabatis Primary?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know. Not since I've been here. I haven't been aware of that. I don't know if anyone else knows. I know we have a lot of new faces around here, so it's kind of hard to ask that, but not to my knowledge, no.
The reason I say that is I taught there for many years,
Mm-hmm.
until the last 5 years. I taught at Carrie Ricker, but I was sick every year in October.
Mhm.
You could go back and look at my records, and every time in October, and it was when school started, I moved to Carrie Ricker, and I was not sick one time the whole 5 years. So I have a feeling something with the air quality is going on there.
Yeah, I don't like to speculate, but again, that building doesn't have any sort of system for recirculating air or modulating its circulation based off of carbon dioxide levels, or in other words, number of people in a certain space. We're relying on windows being open and wind and fans, and I mean, we don't have anything that recirculates the air right now, so I can speculate. We do have our portable air purifiers, which certainly cannot hurt, but again, we don't have anything concrete that is truly circulating
Yeah, because I
fresh
don't know
air.
how the ventilation system works there, but I would go in and fix my classroom when school first started, and I would come in the following day, and there were bugs everywhere, little tiny black. So it's getting in somewhere. I don't know if there's ventilation that you could have a filter in there or something, but they're coming in.
Okay. Something to look into then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? None? Thank you, Jonathan.
Sure. I have those reports if anyone wants to see them afterwards.
Okay. Do you want to, are we passing those out tonight?
So these were, I think you've seen them.
Oh, yeah, those are the existing
Yeah.
ones? I didn't know if anybody needed one or,
Does anybody want that?
okay. All right, so I'll open it up to the public. Any questions? Come up to the mic, state your name, your town, and maybe we can answer some questions. Yeah, go ahead, come up to the mic.
Don't have to raise your hand, just come right on up to that
Yeah.
mic. Yep, come on up.
Hi, my name is Angela, and I'm from Sabatis. I just have a few kind of questions and concerns I want to bring up. He was just talking about the new roofs needing repair or not new roofs. I guess my question would be, when we applied for grants for the high school, why didn't we apply for grants for the two other schools? And then to follow up with him saying, regular maintenance is done on these roofs, so why wasn't this caught before it's at where it's at now? Why did we let it go to where it's at?
Well, for the simple fact is, we haven't had any trouble at Libby Tozier, have we, Jonathan?
No, not anything reportable.
Right, so we're not gonna fix something that doesn't need to be fixed, for one thing, but at Sabatis, we have had problems, and we've fixed them as we went. Sections of roof, before Jonathan was here, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, we had problems with, leaky roof, and we fixed them as we went. And this is just a comprehensive look at everything now to figure out,
Well, I guess my concern is that he said they do regular maintenance every year.
Yep.
Where now we're looking at a $325,000 bill.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like they really held up their bargain on following through with maintenance. If
Well,
we're
we haven't-
sitting at a $325,000
Right.
bill.
Well, we haven't had any repairs to do on that roof, but
So they haven't been going up to do regular maintenance then.
Well, yes, we have.
So the regular maintenance contract that we have signed with them, my understanding from Steve, who is our account manager with G&E, is that we pay X number of dollars, a couple $1,000s a year for them to go up on our roofs in the district and look at the roofs and make those repairs
Right.
within that couple $1,000s. So a very small portion of that is their time to go out there. The rest of that is reserved for small patchwork, caulking, adding additional, like crushed stone at Libby Tozier, things like that. And then if it gets to be anything bigger than that, they have to contact myself or someone at the school to say, hey, we're seeing something bigger here. So a lot of what they do year to year is small patchwork, but if they're looking at it from a longer standpoint, right, in the next 2 years, that patchwork only gets us so far. And I understand what you're saying about why didn't we maybe get some better heads up from this. I can't speak on that, I've only been here since March, but I just wanted him to go out and say, hey, where are we looking and what do the next 2 years look like?
And I guess, again, to bring up, so why are we not, or have we looked into grants just like we did for the high school?
Well, we would if we got to that point, and we will have to as we go. just like we would, the architect has already said that any renovations that we have to make if the bond passes to Carrie Ricker or the existing middle school, we would apply for that revolving renovation fund grant for those things.
I just feel like we're spending a lot of money for this addition, when if we're already putting money into boilers and getting estimates for roofs, then why are we not taking the less? Because it's kind of sounding like we're a cash cow for Siemens. Like the contract she talked about earlier, they're already raising prices. So they're going to put a contract out to us, which the estimate doesn't even show online anymore.
Well, our cost of the estimate is going to be the same as what they quoted us.
But
So
they could
they're
go back
gonna-
and do
they're
the
gonna
same
make-
thing.
Right, but they're going to make up the difference in energy savings. So by changing
But
all
any
these,
contractor nowadays, not trying to cut you off, but any contractor nowadays is going to do energy efficient.
Right.
It's across the board. I
Right.
mean, we all do it. When we build a
Right.
house, when we do anything, it's energy efficient. So I guess my concern is, why are we not taking the lesser route, which when I read through the comments of the school board's notes and meetings, it's $8 million for 10 years to upkeep versus 32 or 35 million to add this addition, and that's just the quote right now. So the contract, like hers, could come back out to us later, be $40 million, and then who's going to make up the difference? That's
Well,
my concern of it all.
the price for the addition is, that number is a not to exceed number. So if the bond passes and we start down the road for the new addition, what happens is we set up a committee, a building committee, which will, there'll be community members involved, board members involved, stakeholders involved, and they'll be discussing all the things as we go, like, what furniture we have in the building, what goes on roofing, what goes on the siding, all that stuff as we go. Well, we can't exceed that 31 million, but it will, I hope, come in lower than that. But not knowing exactly what that number is, that's how we get the contingency number of 31 million. Now, I know when we built the middle school in Sabatis, I was on the facilities committee, and we had $9 million to spend, and the first quotes that we got back were anywhere from 10.5 to 11, and through that process, we cut that down to the $9 million that we wanted to spend. So that is a not to exceed number, and it goes on what we choose and how we build the building.
Now, is there any grants that we can apply for to go towards this cost, or have we even tried?
Well, it's not that we haven't tried. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. The revolving loans, which has just opened and the applications are due by September, we will have to discuss that as a board. What are we going to apply for that? Because it's going to be competitive. So we're going to have to pick what we really believe is going to be funded through that. So yes, absolutely looking at the grants. The other thing, the Siemens put that together doesn't mean we have Siemens do the work. This list that's on here, so Siemens did go through and say, what are the things you could do? And so we were even talking about it before the meeting. That doesn't mean Siemens will do the work. We will go, we will have to go through an RFP process to make sure we do get the best. The $31 million has a contingency fund in it to buffer where there may be some overages. So they always put that in there to make sure that if something comes back, there is some money there for that. So there are a couple of places, but we've already been talking about what are we going to do with the revolving loan with all that needs to be done.
And now, I know every town was granted, like HARPA funds. Are we using any HARPA funds to go towards this?
The ESSER funds, and the ARP funds, yes. So that's being done to support the architect work to get this project off the ground. They are putting money towards that, yes.
And if this gets voted no, are we going to because we're already investing, what, I think you said almost $2 million into a new boiler for the school?
Well, that's not just that school, that's
Right, it's
all the
across
schools.
the district, yeah.
Okay.
That's all 5 buildings.
Right.
So what's going to happen if this gets voted yes? What's going to happen to all that money we just spent on new boilers?
No.
Well, that's still gonna be our phase 3 performance contract, and that's gonna be paid by energy savings by changing from fuel oil to propane. And other things like changing the windows at Cary Ricker. You know, there's been an exhaustive study done by Siemens to tell us what we're gonna save in savings from fuel oil to propane, and what we're gonna save by putting new window, you know what I mean, for energy efficiency.
Right.
Those windows at Cary Ricker, and that's gonna be paid for over that 17-year period with energy savings.
Okay. And then my last thing, and then I'll
Yep.
leave you guys alone, is I know you mentioned Dead River is what you kind of reached out to.
Yeah.
Is there other people that we've reached out to? Because we all know, like, Dead River's a big company. So are we, like, checking with other companies to see what the price difference may be with if we went local versus, like, a family-run business versus, like, a corporate business?
Jonathan?
Yeah, so, we purposely asked Siemens, we said, hey, we would like to see 2 or 3 options here. You know, I listed a local company that I'd like to see because they're already providing us with propane. I'd like to see, a bigger company, like a Dead River or like a AmeriGas, someone who's a little bit bigger, and then something maybe right in the middle. And ultimately, they came back that Dead River's got the best price. Now, part of that, thought process with Dead River too, we're not buying all these propane tanks that it's gonna take. So they're gonna supply those tanks, and right now with the shortage of steel and material, a company of Dead River size is about one of the only companies that can secure 15 1,000-gallon tanks. And they're also one of the bigger companies that can get propane in the event that if there's ever a shortage, they have truckloads of it everywhere. The concern was a project of this size, not only, it's not just the delivery of the fuel, it's the tanks, it's the vaporizers, it's things that, the other things besides just delivering the product itself that are necessary to have a company be able to pull through with on a size, project this size. Certainly if it was one school, one tank, it'd be a different conversation, but where we're talking about going district propane and we're gonna need the number of tanks that you're gonna require, in a time period that we're looking to do this in, we have to have a bigger company like a Dead River who can provide all those equipment for us.
Thank you.
And to give you some background on the performance contract, we hire Siemens as like the general contractor. Then they put the jobs out for bid. They get, you know, the best bid price that they can get to try and keep the cost down. And we only pay Siemens. They manage the project, they finance the project, and so they're looking for the best price they can get too, because underneath the performance contract, if they don't meet the performance, they eat the cost. So let's say, you know, we don't get the energy efficiency that we thought we were going to get, and it's over that cost, Siemens picks up the difference. So we only pay that set price, and they're hoping to get the energy savings that they get and pick up the difference from that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also I just want to make sure that you understood, we asked as some board members for these kind of numbers from Jonathan and others, so that we could see kind of what the bigger projects are coming before us. So this has to also house our children during the construction project too. So we have to replace the boiler, because if we didn't, there would be no students allowed in the building, because there would be no heat.
No, I
So
understand that portion.
that they're not going to be doing that, the roof right now. It was just we asked for some other things that might need to be done to get a better, clear picture for people to see what might come in the next couple of years for these buildings. So it's not being done right now. So I just wanted to make sure that you did understand that this is not something that they're doing right now. It's
Right.
just something we were looking at, maybe needing it done.
I guess my concern is that if I look back on you guys' notes, someone mentioned that it was $8 million for the next 10 years to upkeep the schools. Well, if we go 30 years, that's $24 million. That's still less than what you guys are asking to build a add-on or
Well,
new school.
But the problem with that is, what do you have after the end of that 10 years?
A repaired school.
Well, you still have a school that's over 45, 50 years old, that you have to continually repair. Just maintenance and upkeep on those two buildings are costing us, what is it, Katie, 1.3 million a year? 1.3 million a year. And the bond is 1.3 million a year.
I guess my thing is like if we keep the upkeep, apply for the federal funding to have a school, then maybe we can patch through until we get the bonds, and maybe it'd be less on all of us in the public.
Well, right now, there's 150.
So we put, I don't know. We are trying to put out, I don't know if you follow us on Facebook, but we're trying to put out information each day. And I think today was our construction day, correct? So we're putting up the state, on the main state DOE site is all about school construction. And so the last time they went out was in 2017, 2018, where they had about 74 schools apply. And right now they have approved funding for 5. And so they're right. Last time they went out, it was in 2010, so there was about 6 years between the previous one and the one before that. And so there has been no announcement that they would be reapplying, applications for that process. So it could be 10 years from now that we would be looking at possibly state, and that would be only if we ranked up in probably the top 8 schools. In 2011, they got to the 16th, but there were several schools that combined, which helped move the numbers. So there's a limited cap. There's a great article that we will have on Facebook that came out in 2019 talking about it's a challenge across the state around buildings and not enough funding going into school construction. So our community is not alone. And then when something happens that's drastic, like a fire and so forth like that, they have to look at that. So there's limited funds, and everybody is in need. And so it talks a lot about that. And so, yes, some communities wait and have to patch work up. Some communities have to do the local only to keep the schools open. So it's a hard one. But even if you're approved in 2017, they're only in number 5, and I think number 3, they haven't even started building. So it's a long process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Not a fan of getting up in front of people, but my name is Percy Gowell. I live in Litchfield. I have one kind of interesting question. Let me just go grab something real quick here. So, you guys provided us the numbers as far as Libby Tozier and Sabattis Primary School, as far as how much it costs to operate and maintain those schools. Mm-hmm. What about the existing middle school? Where does that compare to these numbers? That way people that are voting
right
may have a little bit more of a less one-sided view as to these numbers.
Right. Well, I can. Jonathan, do you know what the annual cost is? Jessica, can you look that up?
I can go look it up. I'll be right.
For the middle school?
Line.
Huh?
Budget line for
Yeah, for the
service repair.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, we can look that up now.
Yeah. So but the middle school is a lot more efficient than Sabattis Primary
Oh,
is.
absolutely,
And,
but that does give people a comparable,
Sure.
because
Yeah,
the average voter isn't
Yeah,
going to know
right.
it costs X number of dollars to
Right.
maintain a building.
Yeah.
They know their homes. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably an important number to get in
Sure.
front of people.
Okay.
The other issue that I would like discussed is school capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Building capacity versus school capacity. I have called and talked to, I believe it was Jonathan. Still waiting on those numbers.
So you're asking
Not
about,
not surprised that I haven't seen them before the vote.
So are you saying you want to know how many students that is capacity that building was built for? Okay.
Yes,
So
and
we're-
obviously there's regulations as to
Yeah.
how many students you're allowed to have in a certain size classroom. I'm no expert on these numbers, but Obviously you have a building capacity, which is what the fire marshal's office would say. X number of people allowed in a building per so many square feet or whatever. I'm no expert again. Or how many students will fit in these buildings. Because I still wouldn't necessarily want to rule out closing one of the schools and moving the students to the existing buildings. Or if we even have a small group of students, like there's a certain year, like when I was in 3rd grade, we had to add a portable classroom to the school because there wasn't enough room to house that grade. If that's still an option, and that may save us a lot of money. I know it's a temporary solution, but with taxes going up, energy costs have gone up, building costs have gone up. I don't know if now is the right time to build. And I think there's a lot of people that are concerned about that, so.
Yeah, and Jonathan and I will talk about that. I mean, we'll be looking at that, because a lot of times with the school plans and architects, they often will put capacity on there, so we'll go back and look at those plans.
Right.
Yeah, we can put it as part of our one of our facts, sure. Yeah. I'm writing down what you're asking so that we can, yeah.
I apologize, I haven't called you back on that exact one. I finally got a hold of the fire marshal office, and they gave me the formula. We're really close. It is based off square footage of the room, but they give me about 500 factors that I have to calculate. They didn't actually give me, I asked for, what are your max numbers per building? And they said, here's the calculation, and the email was about that long. And then it mattered also, cafeteria is different, gymnasium is different. If there's an event in the cafeteria or the gymnasium, then that math is different. And it's basically square footage by room. So I'm trying to calculate, or trying to find.
Right, I would just say, you expect to house, I mean, is the schools overcrowded right now? Is there too many students for the schools that we have? I believe when I went to Oak Hill, there was 575 students in the whole of Oak Hill when I went there. I don't believe there's that many there now. Right. Just running a number off the top of my head, so. Therefore, I would think there'd be a little bit of room in that building alone. Yeah, just. Yeah, again, and I'm no expert on any of these, but I think if we're going to put something like this out to vote, that, the public should be aware that this isn't necessarily the only option, because I feel like a lot of the literature that's been put out and a lot of the articles I've seen written are kind of pointing us that this is the only option. And I don't think that's responsible. And I don't think the people that are supposedly representing us are representing us properly, if that's the case.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
The operations budget at Oakville Middle was around $729,000.
Okay. Yep, go.
Mr. Chair, I just want to ask her a question. How come this vote was going to help November 1st?
Well, the reason why that was discussed, Paul, was that in order to go out for the bond in a timely fashion and not have to wait another year, the latest we could go was September, Katie? Are we talking September? Because what happens is the bond bank opens, Jessica, October? Yeah, opens October. So if we waited till November, we would have missed that bond cycle, and we would have had to have the vote in November, and then we wouldn't have had to be able to apply again, which would have set the project back.
But November 1st, people were there to vote.
Oh, absolutely. That was discussed. That was discussed and talked about. Yep, it was. And the board made a decision to have it in August. Huh?
Christy has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Chrissy.
sorry. So back to Percy's comment around other options. I think it would be important to talk about, if this doesn't pass, what are the options so folks can make an informed decision. So if this referendum doesn't pass, what does that mean? Because schools still have to be operational. What are our options?
Well, I think our options would be whatever, everything's on the table. We're going to have to keep those schools viable. So we're going to have to put the money into them. And the problem with that is the financing. We can go out for a $10 million bond. Jessica, we could go out for a $10 million bond and, do the repairs needed while school goes on and all that stuff.
Have another vote.
And would have to have another vote to put that out to bond, that $10 million to repair those schools, to make them viable for the next 30 years. So that $10 million is a down payment on what we're going to have to do to those schools as we go on, because at the end of 10 years or 15 years, we might be looking at another roof, air handlers through that, So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to first thing have a comprehensive look at those two buildings and find out exactly what we need to do to make those buildings viable, and to bring them up to a standard that will get us by for time. But it comes down to financing at that point. So the financing piece is you can't go put a $300,000 roof on a school and ask the contractor to wait to pay for it. So we'd have to bond that money or make it come out of that year's tax bill. So that's where we are. So can the repairs be done? Sure. Anything can be repaired. But it's what you get out of the repairs at the end of that time is where we are. Now, we're only talking about building repairs. We're not talking about educational advantages for a new building. We're not talking about, being able to have all the staff in one area, which is a big plus that the board has been aiming towards. So we get rid of Libby Tozier and Sabatis Primary, and they all come together under one roof. That's been a goal of the board for quite some time. And, there's just a lot more than taking care of those buildings, I think. Vicki?
Hey, Robbie. I think listening to Percy, should this vote not pass, I think the board is going to be charged with having to come up with
Yep.
an idea or a couple of options.
Oh, yeah.
Whether closing one school,
Yep.
moving some classes to different schools.
Yeah, why wasn't this discussed first?
That option during this whole discussion was to close those two buildings. Because one, they're not very efficient, and two, they need a lot of repairs. So this is the option that the board recommended to the community, and it's up to the community to either accept it or turn it down, and then we'll we'll come up with another option.
One other question, real quick, and I apologize for not jumping up there, but some of the things that the state recommends that have to be done.
Right.
Which is kind of a weird way of wording things. Is there grants available? Because they're requiring that we do these things. They should be able to require that we get paid
Well,
to do these things.
I can tell you for a fact, Jonathan, we replaced the kitchen floor at Oak Hill, right?
Yep.
Because we had to. They didn't give us an option. They just said it's not going to pass inspection if it's not replaced. And it's the same way with the boiler. We cannot run that school without that boiler in there, so we had to replace it. So.
Right, I mean, any boiler has a lifespan.
Right.
That should have been planned on.
Right.
Well before now.
Well, we have been looking at that boiler for a long time, and we were looking at the cost. That's why we went with the performance contract to repair it, and that's why we're looking at replacing all the other changing over from oil heat to propane in the other schools. We're trying to be proactive, not reactive. I'm just saying that we're not going to be proactive. We're going to have to be reactive from this point on if the bond doesn't pass. So is it worth the communities investing in a new building or repairing what we have and getting by with that until they either become completely unusable and we have to do what we have to do to get those buildings in shape, which we're going to have to do. So we're going to have to sit here as a board and have those discussions about, do do we increase class sizes and stuff more kids into a different school, or put some portables in, or, you know what I mean? This is our first option. If that option doesn't pass, we go to option 2. And that's going to be the community's decision.
Robbie,
Yeah.
can I continue?
Sure.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I think I want to direct it to you, and I'm sorry, I didn't get your name when you spoke. No, not Paul, in front of, yeah. You want to know why this wasn't done? I came on the board 2 years ago. I was asked to please come on the board because no one wanted to sit in this seat. So I said, sure. I had 15 years experience from the past, and I thought I was done. So when I came on, a vote had already been taken that this process was going to begin. So I'm sitting here and I'm going to go with the process because I feel every one of you should have the opportunity to say yes or no on this school. And if you say no, then I'm all gung-ho to sit with this board and make decisions that will affect our kids, your kids. My kids are all out of the school, but your kids are still my kids. That will affect the kids educationally and housing them to the best of our ability. So if you could give us a little leniency, wait till after that vote, and let us make some decisions. I'm going to make the best decisions that I can make. Sure.
I appreciate you guys all for stepping out and being on the board. Trust me, we know this is tons of time and effort. What I heard Kirsty was talking, and the same that I support too, is that right now we are asked to choose one option or what. And that's all what is kind of like up in the air with no concrete option. And that, like, yes, there was a number like upkeep, but there was no number like, okay, this is upkeep.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, the option is not really, it's like we're either not doing it, and we gotta wait to see what happens. So it's not really a like informed decision. So that's why we're kind of standing on the ground that is not really solid. That's what we kind of getting to. So I'm not asking you to give me like a whole detailed thing on like this is what, you know, but like a something that could be like another option for the near future. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is kind of like right now that we are lacking in making this decision to the best of our ability. But we totally appreciate what you guys are doing instead. Like, we know it's a sacrifice, so don't take it like we don't appreciate it, okay?
I appreciate that.
And I'm sorry if we came out rude or anyway, it's just, I did not mean to do disrespectful to anybody.
No, I just want to say again that we are going to do something.
Oh, most definitely, we have to.
Because we have to.
Yeah.
If we close one school and rearrange students, then, you know, I know it's going to be another change for the students. We've done a lot of that in the last 3 years, and unfortunately, we're in a different leadership right now. So fortunately, we can go forward and have some changes done from the last 4 or 5 years. So, again, my feeling is I have to wait for the vote, and then we're going to be gung-ho to help our students the best that we can in the ramification knowing that taxes are too high as they are right now.
Anything else?
On Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom?
Yes, Teresa Medor, Litchfield. I hear what you're saying. I appreciate all of you as a retired educator who came out of retirement to help substitute, because there was a huge need. I do think more kids can be fit into a building. I primarily substitute at Oak Hill, since that's my experience. And almost every teacher at that school every day has their room empty for one period. So there is more opportunity. I believe they have one floating teacher, science teacher, but there is an opportunity to save money by trying to figure out the numbers. And I'd be okay with the yes or no vote coming to the public if it was in November. But right now in August, I have a lot of neighbors who are out on vacation. They're not going to be back for the vote. And I'm concerned. I can afford the increase, but I know so many families in Litchfield, I don't know Sebatis or Wales very well, that this is gonna push them over the line. One woman I talked to retired from Oak Hill, she was there for like 35 years, and if this goes through, she's gonna lose her house, she'll have to sell and move. And it's kind of, it broke my heart thinking she gave her life to RSU4 or Litchfield, and now she's going to have to find somewhere else to live because she's on teacher retirement, fixed income, and this is just gonna be too much. I recently built a house, and I saw the difference in prices from 2018 to now, and just sheetrock and 2x4s are out of astronomical right now. It seems insane to me to be building right now. I do believe prices will go down as inflation kicks in. So to me, this is the wrong time to be building. I wish this had never come to vote. And 53 million to pay back is so much on small rural community to ask for right now. When I would rather have Libby Tozer open so our families would have a community school. I wish Wales still had a community school. This going away to putting on the bus forever, or having parents having to drive so far to drop off their kids because they don't want them on the bus. That to me is another huge issue too. And that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yep, go ahead.
My name is Gary Parker. I'm just curious as to the state aid issue. Has the RSU ever put their name in the last 14 years on the list to receive state aid for building, regardless of whether you think that we wouldn't get it or not? You still have to put your name on the list. Have you put our name on the list to receive state aid for building every year since in the last 14 years you've been talking about this, to receive state aid? Have you done it?
No.
To be specific
Okay.
to go on the list?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Answer
Yeah.
the question. No.
No.
Didn't you vote a few years ago to get on the list? I'm pretty sure.
Well, on the revolving renovation fund
For the high school.
for the high school, when we did the roof. And we did get, because our need was so great there, we did get 600 and some odd thousand for that $1 million project. Yeah. Paul?
So, do we have more bonds, out there?
We have one left, Jessica, on the existing middle school in Sebatis.
I think we have 2 years.
2 years.
We have 2 years left in payment. to
2
the-
years left, yeah. So before we even open the addition, if it passes, that would go away. Yeah.
There's another hand raised.
Another one on Zoom?
Laura.
Hi, this is Laura Clifford from Sebatis. I just had a couple of questions. I apologize, I jumped on a little late, but from recent numbers that came out, we have, do you know the numbers that the district gets for how many kids per kid that's enrolled? Is it 11 or 13,000?
Yeah. Yeah, 1,350, Laura.
So,
13,000, sorry.
13,000.
13,000.
I was gonna say.
Sorry.
I am definitely, yeah. So about 13,000 per student that's enrolled, and it from recent numbers, not exact, so apologize, but there's 130 kids that are homeschooled currently, and 97 additional kids that have chosen outside of our district. Not fantastic here at math, but so that comes out to 230 roughly kids at 13,000 apiece. Does somebody know the math on that? Almost 3 million, maybe, right? So it's just really concerning that there's not a lot of maybe investigation to why that's a pretty high number when we have, 1,300 of them aren't even attending the district. And then, so like that's obviously money that then has increased as well, because we don't get that money from the state, right, when kids don't enroll in school. So just a little concerning with that when we're talking like the budget being increased, but also like the over 4 million that we received in COVID funds. You said half of that has been used for the architects?
No,
No.
no, no. Well, I believe, what was it, Katie, 75?
Yeah, there's a project in the ESSER funds, but not all the funds went there, no.
Yeah.
There's
So a quarter of that COVID money has been, when we've had a year, and you guys know, we've been a couple of times, we have 2 kids in the district, we've been out of the district, we've been lots of places, but we have had, and I can only imagine staff, we have over 40 open positions. We have bus runs that we were dropping our kids off. We're well below the state. We don't even have half of our kids meeting or exceeding the state standards. But a new fancy school is gonna fix all that? Like what is happening? What are our kids and our staff really gonna benefit? I mean, you're gonna increase test score or increase scores and opportunities in a couple of years and it's gonna be great, or like I have not, and everyone's been talking numbers and obviously taxes and things, but like what help me with how we're gonna have standard buses. Our kids are on the bus for an hour. We've had 2 buses that haven't even left the bus garage in 2 years, and there's been nothing sent out to bid, there's been nothing sent out to auction, there's been no equipment, but all you've been doing is saying, we need more, increase, and we're not benefiting. We have 200, a quarter of the population of our student body doesn't even go anymore.
Well, I know our homeschool numbers went up during COVID. Am I right, Kathy?
Yep, so we used to average around 50 students every year. We're averaging right now about 100. Since that COVID, but we did have an influx of families that moved in and just other options. Since remote was working for them,
Right.
they chose to continue a fully remote option.
Right. And as far as the buses go, Jonathan, can you talk about the buses that we have gotten over the last year and a half?
Yeah, so I just recently, because it just coincidentally is the time that I have to report state federal mileage reports to the DOE. So coincidentally, I had to go through our inventory, and it looks like we got, let's say, four to five buses since 2019, something around that ballpark. And to your comment, Laura, I believe about, were you saying we have some buses sitting and haven't had a chance or haven't really exhausted any options to auction them off or get rid of them? Was that a comment?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of buses, we have a couple of things with busing, but the buses have not moved in years, and they sat there. So like, we don't have bus drivers, and we've had to like redo routes, and I know that you're pretty new here, but we've had to redo routes, we've had to be creative, we've had, come and go and all of these things. So I don't know but it seems kind of wasteful to have buses, equipment of any kind. I have not seen, I don't know, Rob, Dayton there, if you have, when the last time the RSU put items out to bid, that weren't useful anymore, they've expired, whatever, because I haven't seen anything published. It used to be in the Sun Journal, I think maybe like 8 years ago was the last time I saw something out to bid, but.
Well, I can tell you, Carol, in the past, our buses, we hang on to them for as long as we can, and we scavenge as many parts as we can off of them. That includes seats, motors, transmissions, tires. So when we're done with them, there's not much left to them. Am I right, Jonathan?
My understanding, yes, and I'd have to double check with the state, but it looks like a pretty exhaustive process to basically decommission a bus and get it off our books. It's a lot, and I'm not saying, believe me, it's totally doable, but it's an exhaustive process to get a bus out of your lot. I don't know all the particulars, I just, in a phone call with the state last week about our bus inventory, one of those, items was brought up because we had so many, in our inventory on paper, not physically in our yard or in our possession anymore, but still showed as ownership because it's an exhaustive process to basically put those things out to bid. Now, I'd be more than happy to look into what specifically might not be of any value to our district anymore, and would love to see those things go out to bid, but, again, I would have to do some more research on that.
And the thing is, on the buses that we do not use anymore, they get stored at our mechanic's yard, and he scavenges whatever we need off those buses until they're nothing but a shell. That's what's happened in the past.
So, are you aware that there has been, yeah. So, are you aware that there have been buses that have not moved for years? That are usable buses, we don't have bus drivers, we restructured routes, whatever. I'm just saying, there's lots of more creative ways maybe that, items could go out to bid, and I appreciate Jonathan mentioning that he's fully on board with that, because that has not, been the case in the past. But then back to Kathy's note of, we typically have 30 kids, or 50 kids homeschool, that number is almost tripled now, right? Because we had 130 on the most recent report from the superintendent. So, and then 97 being placed out of the district. Like, I don't anticipate that's probably really been that way for years, right? Like, we don't normally have a quarter of our population outside the district. So, that, yes or no, that has increased the, taxes. Like, that increases because we lose that 13,000 per kid, right?
Just for clarification, we have 94 that leave and we have 47 that come in. So the difference is less for us at 47 students, just to make sure everyone understands. There's 47 students coming in, 94 going out, and we do scrutinize those superintendent's agreements, and parents, it can be a touchy situation around where students go, where families would like to go. So we are looking at each of those as they are coming through right now, but that's the number.
Sorry, so that was 94 are out of the district and 47 come from other towns
Correct.
into the district?
Yes.
And we do a report for every homeschool student that is choosing to stay home and not come into the RSU. We do a yearly report, we connect with the parents, and although our numbers are higher, we have seen an increase since pre-COVID, but it is down compared to what we were at the peak of COVID. So we are seeing a trend coming back and joining our RSU.
So still, just to be clear, the number is 130 kids homeschooled, 94 out of the district, averaging about 13,000 apiece.
Well, we do get for the 47 coming in.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I heard that.
Okay.
Other towns, Nevada, Wales, and Litchfield.
correct.
They have to pay for it, but we do get
No.
13,000 in state funds.
No, we get paid for the 47 that come in. They're part of our count.
So the net would be,
We've lost 47.
we lost 47
plus
total.
the homeschool. Right.
Yeah.
So 177 times 13,000. Just as a,
Right.
yeah. Okay, and then I don't know, especially since I'm a Sabatis resident, if any of my Sabatis board members, have a, quick, I don't wanna take up the whole meeting, have a quick, how is this gonna benefit our kids' education besides having a fancy new desk and new floors and a new school? Like, how academically, are there new, science labs, are there new, new equipment, are there new laptops, are there, like, how is this gonna benefit our children? My children that are going there for another 3 years, how is this gonna benefit them, and other kids in the future?
So Laura, in looking at the design of this new school for the 5 through 8 wing, one of the things that we were very clear on, and one of the things that the teachers and students who were brought into the fold with all of this, was having 21st century, what they call maker spaces. When they said that word to me, I said, what is that? Maker spaces, I guess, would be a high-end, if you will, think industrial arts, but in the 21st century format, where students will have access to all sorts of different equipment, things to be able to create. One of the things that happened 20 years ago was the fact that industrial arts went out the window, which was not a good choice. Oak Hill, fortunately, is one of the few schools in the state that still has on site those particular programs. So what these maker spaces will do for these students will give them earlier access, earlier opportunities, so that then they can take advantage of LRTC programs and advanced programs that are also offered at the high school in this particular fashion. I hope that answers your question.
There's also dedicated science labs too, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. For each level?
Yep.
Yes.
In addition, we do have spaces for some special ed programming that we currently do not have. Our district spends over $1 million sending students out of the RSU to get programming that we cannot provide in the RSU. And the idea is that if we start providing those spaces, then we can bring those children back into RSU and back into our schools. So saving money in that regard as well. So some of it is specific programs for all students, and then some are specialty programs to save money in the long term.
And then the only other question, thank you, the only other question I have for that is the only way to get these additional things, like this sounds like it would benefit our kids, right? So the only way to get these additional things is to pay for the entire new edition. There's no other way to get these without a $31 million edition.
I think we currently have a fraction of this that is also doubling in the library space at the middle school. That is not ideal. I think ideally what we're looking at with this is to create more opportunity for all students and more access for all students to be able to have that experience and to have it be built into the regular scheduling at a larger capacity than what they get to have right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
And Carol, on the bus part, I think the last time we put a bus out to bid, we got one bid and it was for $50. And it was more or less hauled away for scrap. So that's why we have a place to store the buses that we're not using. And if we have a breakdown, those buses are used or scavenged until there's just about nothing left but a hull.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So then you would only be asking for $30,950, right?
Yeah, sure.
You're correct. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Sorry, I'm short. Tiffany Hurd from Sabatis. So I have a few things. I know that we've been talking about this for a long time. I feel like the first community chat or whatever might have been October, maybe? It was in the fall, anyways. So one of my concerns is, like, in all this time, and people have been asking for the numbers and asking for specific numbers on school capacity and specific costs for repairs, et cetera, et cetera. They're asking for other options. And we've been almost a year now, 13 days until we have to vote. And a lot of these things have still not been given to the public. A lot of this information is still, we're looking into it. So you don't have to answer, like, it's not a question. I'm just letting you know that's some of the hesitation that's coming through the communities, is that we're asking for more information and we haven't gotten it, and the time crunch is on. So I know, speaking for myself, it is hard to make an informed vote with numbers we don't have, with information we don't have, with question marks and saying, well, we're not really sure. When we've been discussing it for almost a year, it's been, I mean, in the plans for several years. So that's just a hard ask on the community
Yeah.
to say, you know, you're asking us to vote with limited information.
Well, the problem, I'll just answer that piece of it for right now,
Yeah.
is that it's been talked about, but with the piece about what we had to deal with COVID and stuff like that, it got kind of put on the back burner. And when we actually hired the architect was when, Katie, you sent me the information,
Yeah, that was back last
yeah,
September.
when we hired the architect.
Yeah.
And then they had to make their plans, and they had to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gather everything together, get the concept idea, show us the concept, we had to approve the concept, and then they started collecting the numbers. So,
Yeah, it takes time. I totally
right,
get it.
yeah,
The concern is that it takes time, but now we're rushing upon this vote. That's how I feel. I feel like it's being rushed, and I feel like that the response when people say we feel rushed and we don't feel like we're ready to make this vote is, well, if it doesn't pass, then here are the consequences. Instead of coming to us and saying, if it doesn't pass, let's collaborate to come up with new ideas, which you did say a little bit earlier. I know. Most of what I'm hearing and seeing out to the public is, if it doesn't pass, consequences. That's hard. We're talking about our kids, and we're talking about our kids' education. We don't even need to get into like where our education is at in the district right now. I'm not happy with it. I know a lot of people are not happy with it. Some of it's COVID, some of it's not. Well, I mean, consequences such as we're going to have to be reactive instead of proactive. If you don't pass it, we're going to have to be reactive. Why? There's still an option to be proactive, even if it doesn't pass. So why are those things being put out? Why is it, if this doesn't pass, your taxes are going to go up now because we're going to have to pay for everything right up front? That's not necessarily the truth, because there's no timeline being given to us saying this needs to be done now. It's saying we need to do it within the next few years. So that's what I'm saying, is it feels like, even if that's not the intention, it feels like we're being told these will be the consequences to you not doing what we're asking. That's the interpretation that is coming forth. I'd like to know why no one has put our name on the list in however many years. I feel like that would be a first step when we're looking to build a new school, is to at least try. If we haven't tried, but my father told us growing up, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if we do ask, the worst they can say is no, and we're in the same spot, but no one has asked. So another question that I've asked on Facebook, and I don't remember if the answer that was given was a definite or not, was when would the payments start? Because if the payments on the bond do not start until after the schools are closed and the new building is operable, that changes some perspective on how much taxes are
Right.
going to go up and when.
right.
So,
Well, when you asked that question, I found out,
Yep.
and I responded to you. Our first payment would be a partial payment,
yep,
which would be due in May. On May 1st. And it's a
of what year?
2023. And that would be about $600,000. So consequently, we would have to, because that would come out of this year's budget, and we would have to find a way, either through a short-term loan to get us into 2024 budget. You know what I mean?
So we're
And
gonna,
then the bond payment, which the regular bond payment, right, Jessica, would start on November 1st, 2023? 2023.
but that's next year.
Right,
So we have a partial payment due in May of 2023,
right.
and then the regular full bond payment due in November or whatever of 2023, October. Yep.
interest payment and then,
So it would affect
Yes.
people's taxes this coming tax season.
Yes. Well, we're trying.
Not to the extent that the numbers
Right.
you put out, but it
Right.
still would
Yes.
be an additional increase on top of the school budget that has
Well,
already
no,
passed.
because this year's school budget's already set. It's already passed.
So it'd be
We're
an
just gonna have to find a way to fund it with funds we already have.
by taking out a loan,
Yes, probably.
which would increase the next school budget even more.
It would fall over into the next school budget, and we would, after June 30th, we would pay that loan off with the new budget numbers, because that number would be built into the 2023-24 budget.
Right, so the next year's school budget will be higher to cover the loan on top of the loan
Right.
and the loan payment. The
Right.
bond payment, sorry.
The bond payment.
The loan on top of the bond and the bond payment.
Right.
On next year's taxes.
Right.
The money
Mark?
only goes so far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I want us to have a new school. Our kids need, schools to be operable. I get it, but the money only goes so far. If I have to choose between feeding my kids and paying for the school, I'm feeding my kids.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in that situation right now. And a lot of people will be in that situation if this continues.
Through this whole process, the reason why we decided to put it out to the community, because the community has final say.
Yeah.
If it's too expensive for the community, they vote no, and we go to the next option. That's
Okay.
what we do. That's what we'll have to do, is go to the next option.
I just wish we had the next option now.
I don't think we know the next option now.
Okay.
Until we have a comprehensive plan of what we need to do to those buildings. I mean, we've had a comprehensive plan of what we need to do to those buildings, but not an in-depth look at those buildings. Because the first option was, we're gonna close 2 schools, we're gonna consolidate them into one building, we're gonna go from 5 campuses to 3. Our transportation is gonna be less, because we'll be going to less campuses, we'll be traveling less, we hope. Yeah, but still less. And we'll be we'll be in a more efficient, energy efficient, and educational building. So that's up to the community. We're just trying to give you all the facts. And we have not denied, any facts. We have not, it's up to the community. We're giving you the option, the community, the option to vote.
So, can I ask one last question?
Sure.
Whose responsibility would it be to put the name on the list for the state for grant money?
We would, as a board, discuss it and ask the superintendent to put us on the list.
But they're not
But-
accepting them.
But that,
Right.
But
well,
they're not
no,
accepting.
I know,
Yeah.
but for
Yeah.
the future,
The business manager, the
Right.
director, the superintendent puts a package together. And a lot
and
of
it
this
hasn't
work
been
that-
considered before,
Oh, no, it's been considered.
just decided not.
It just decided not to because the list was so large and our need wasn't as great as other districts.
Or at least we thought not.
Well,
At least we thought not.
So we didn't ask.
Right.
Okay.
Thank
you.
I'm also thinking too that it seems as though it's just an easy thing to put it on the list. But part of what happens with this is you have to be incredibly specific. And if we don't know, part of what the conversation and discussion has been over the past 5 years with the board is, do we want to take the time and we don't know what's hidden behind door number 2, I guess is the best way to put an analogy to it. We can go ahead and be specific with whatever information we have, but for example, we didn't know that Libby Tozier boiler, as Robbie says, we're watching it, but we had no idea that it was going to have 3 out of the 5 sections of it crack and be done in the time that it happened. So I think there's a lot of, it is on our behalf as well. There's a lot of wishful thinking and saying hindsight is 20/20. Why didn't we do this? I was having this conversation with my husband the other night of my God, we've known we've needed to do this whole procedure and project. It's not something that happens overnight at the snap of the fingers. It just doesn't happen that way. But the reality is that we've known for at least 10 years that the intention was of this district and this board that we were going to need to proceed with this. And yeah, timing is terrible. But I also worry about, okay, so if we don't do this, what happens if we have to come back and revisit it in a couple of years? It's not going to be less expensive. I mean, we could, again, be wishful thinking about that.
It might be less expensive. I've had my hand up for a while.
So, I mean, it's truly like coming to all of you. We understand. We're also charged with, as Vicki said, we're going to do the best for your kids, given whatever situation you guide us with this vote, okay? It's not like we're just going to throw in the towel and say, oh, I don't know, because that's not what we're about.
My name's Dan Stevens, I live in Litchfield. So you got option A right now, build a new addition. You haven't even looked at option B. So we're gonna vote August 8th or 9th, whatever it is, it'll get voted down. So you got 30 days to figure what you're gonna do.
No.
What are you gonna do with the kids if the schools can't, if they can't go to the schools?
Oh, they can go to the schools.
Still go to the schools.
We can still go to the
You're
schools.
contradicting yourself. I mean, that list of stuff you got up there that needs to be done, it doesn't even need to be done. Somebody's put money in somebody's pocket to inflate those numbers.
Nobody's put money in anybody's pocket.
$900,000 for a new service for Libby Tozier? Give me a break.
Nobody's put money in anybody's pocket.
Those numbers are not accurate.
Those numbers were given to us by by the company we asked to look at that. It's a
Correct.
comprehensive number.
Because you guys want a new school, is what it amounts to.
It's not my
Yes,
decision
yes,
alone.
it is. You're snowballing everybody.
No, not true.
It is.
Not true. Go ahead, Mark.
Get the real numbers.
Teresa. Teresa's
Oh, Teresa, sorry.
Let Teresa go first.
Teresa?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I urge you, and I think our new superintendent seems very intelligent, to go speak to the high school kids early on in the year and ask them what they have thought of their education in RSU4. Having gone through district redesign and spent a decade in curriculum and instruction, you'd be amazed at the insight that kids can give you about what really needs to be done. And I don't know how much that's happened. I don't know how often you do walkthroughs in classroom to check rigor, because I think there could be improvement in rigor in instruction. And it can be made fun. I don't know if we need more training. I like every teacher I've encountered, but with the test scores, the way they are, science, 8th grade and 11th grade are the only thing decent compared to the rest of the state. And the high school kids will tell you they don't feel competitive with students from other districts when they graduate, when they go off to college. So I urge you to start there. I know you're into the building part, but please consider that. And I know you keep saying it's going to go out to the voters, but it's not going out to the voters in August. It's going out to some people. And it should have been November. I keep going back to that. It feels nefarious. It feels like there's underhanded stuff going on with that, and that's what it's portraying out to people. And in Litchfield, because of this, so many people are talking about wanting to withdraw from RSU4. I'm not one of them, but this is pushing them over the limit. And I have said that at meetings starting way back when, and that the only time the citizens, I'm grateful that we've been allowed to talk tonight, because the only time we had been after that $31+ million was mentioned was that night before the school board, and we were cut off. Even we were asked, could we please continue, could you delay the school board meeting just a little bit so everyone could ask questions, and it was a no. And so I do appreciate you listening tonight, but those are still concerns that you're gonna have to deal with, whether it passes or not, is improving instruction and knowing that so many people don't wanna be in the district anymore. Thank you.
Mark?
Mark Cat, Selectman status. You were talking about that you're gonna have to take a loan out. in
Yeah.
next year's budget, correct? And with the, you figure with the school being built, it's gonna cost Sabatis a mill rate increase of 2.53.
Yeah, about.
Now, this year, Sabatis has actually have to increase their mill rate. Right now, talking to the tax assessor, 0.94
Mhm.
cents a mill. 0% increase on the municipal side, 584,000 on the school side.
Mhm.
So we're looking at 2 years of almost a 4 mil increase. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So I just wanna let everybody know.
Right,
that's
but,
what it's gonna cost
you know,
on
what
Sabatis.
drove that 8.5% increase in the budget this year was renegotiating contracts with support staff, making considerable contributions to keep our bus drivers, to keep our custodians, to keep our, you know, and it's the same way with everything else. I mean, we all have, you know, whether you're a municipality, a school district, a company, retaining people costs more money, and fuel costs went up, so that was added into. So if you take those things, energy costs went up, if you take those things out of the budget, our budget actually was probably no more than 2.5% to 3%. But you can't not factor those things into a school budget when we're hearing from the community, they don't want to they don't want to transport their kids. They don't, you know, we want our schools kept clean. We want our school, you know what I mean? So that's all factored into this part of the increase, and it's a perfect storm.
Oh, I understand.
It's a perfect storm.
We dealt with it also.
Yeah.
Now, how much money did the RSU4 get for ARPA money? How many?
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
Yeah.
Close to 6 million?
I'm on the website right now.
Okay.
So the ARP, which is 2 years, this coming in next year, was 3.5 million,
So $7 million?
approximately, yeah. And then the other, that's the last
No.
one.
Yeah, the last one, the one before that was.
Was less.
Did they give you 50/50?
No.
They didn't give you 50/50?
No, so I can look it up, that's why.
I think it was
That's
like
why I have my computer.
1.5,
But I'm
and
just
then
wondering how it went,
1.1.
because the municipality, we got 50%, then the next year we got 50%.
We did not.
No.
It goes
And that's
through,
what I'm saying.
yeah, it goes through the formula.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if you guys use some of that ARPA money, besides the architect, but towards the new roof, well, actually, to repair the roof, things like that could actually save money.
The first one was 385,000, that's already gone.
No, no,
Oh, okay.
but
I've
I'm just
answered your
wondering why you
question.
didn't use those funds.
So,
to repair the schools.
right, but a lot of those funds were used, Mark, to buy supplies that we needed, and, you know, like screens for desk, and hand sanitizer, and COVID stuff, because there's a list of things we can use it for, and there's a list of things we can't use it for. Right.
But you actually had a lot of savings too with the children not being in the schools.
Well, you,
The staff were still there.
yeah,
buses were still running.
right, the staff was still there, the buses were still running, the food service was still working.
Delivering food to the kids, which I
Right.
understand.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there are some cost savings because the heat wasn't up all the way. You know,
Well-
there is, trust me, I've been doing it for 19 years, I know
Yeah.
how to save money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very frugal.
I mean, but the schools were still open because our staff was there during the day, you know, except for when the initial shutdown. And then we went back. When did we go back, Kathy, as far as the staff was concerned? In that fall, right?
March 20th of 2020, but we started September 14th of 2020.
Right.
But there was still staff in there with like custodial staff and
Right.
teaching staff going through. So we didn't save it, we didn't reduce the heat. We still had the same amount of staff in there and half the students. So we didn't really save in that regard of heat or electricity because the same amount of staff were in the buildings.
I don't know, when I go by every day to check my sewer station, there's no cars in the parking lot. But, you know.
We had a split, we
had
did have a split schedule where some kids went some days, some kids went other days,
Every other day.
every other day, and we were open 5 days a week.
But Robbie, you know me.
Yeah,
like to
I
save
understand.
as much money as possible.
Yeah, I understand.
Goes away.
Yeah,
I'm done.
yeah, thank you.
And Robbie, didn't we send money back to the 3 towns that school year?
Yes, yes, because we didn't, see, unlike a municipal budget, who gets to they get to bank that money, a school district can't, right, Katie? We have to, if our budget comes back, we have revenue that has to go back to the districts, because we can't keep that, after the audited money is, we have to turn that money back to impact taxes, which we did.
I do remember that.
Yes.
Can we get a balance on that ARPA account as of now? And do we expect more? As you had mentioned some more.
No, there's no more.
So what's the
We can,
balance?
we can do,
A rough guess? Was it 4 million?
we're at that was 3.9. We've spent 450,000, Jess?
For the ARP
Mhm.
budget, was 3.5, I'm not sure, I guess, to give you accurate numbers.
I'm just
I'd
looking
get
for
back
a-
to you, Scott,
I'm just
instead
looking
of
for a
just
guess.
doing numbers
Three-
off the top
3.5
of my head.
million?
Is what the ARP budget is.
And that's earmarked, is that still, it has to be earmarked for COVID stuff? Or have they?
No,
do you foresee that they're going to change that at some point in time? I mean, you have this account of money that's not gonna be able to be used
So
at some
Scott, if
point.
you remember, we did that survey to the community about how we wanted to spend the 3.5.
Yes.
And then we met as a board, we went over all of the responses and then determined what those projects were gonna be based on that.
Yes.
And so that's how we wrote the application. They're not gonna change the criteria, that's from the federal government. But that was also posted on our website of what the responses were and then our application.
So we have no opportunity to change that plan? The money has to still go to, or whatever we submitted for a plan? So we can, as an example.
We can look at the plan. So Scott, just so you, all right. So this ARP grant it's still focused on supporting students and moving them forward due to COVID impact. It can also include things for buildings as well. So we can review that at our next meeting. What are the different projects on it?
Sure.
I'm going to talk about some of the need
Well, I think we're
in
getting
the
ahead of
next gen.
ourselves because it depends on what the vote is, but.
Right,
Clearly,
yeah.
there's money that would be available for an air handler. I mean, I would think
There-
for COVID-related, clearing the air, right?
Right. So those are things we can discuss.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there will be other things that we have planned for that we wouldn't be able to do. So we would have to balance out what is our priorities.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm curious to know if you have a breakdown of class size for K through 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12.
Yeah, sure.
What's the average class size for those grades at those levels? And if it's written on a piece of paper, I'd be more than happy to receive it. You can send it. to
We'll
town
send it to you.
Well, I know class sizes are in our budget report.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
Right.
But you could sit there
We'll
and
Sure.
show
send-
me, and I won't remember. If
Right.
you've got it on paper,
Yep.
send it to the town office.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but if you get a copy of our budget report that we put out every May,
All I want is a list of students per class.
okay,
Yeah.
sure.
What the class size is.
Per
That's what I
grade,
wanna know.
the grade or?
Each grade level,
Grade level.
each class.
Right.
Each grade has more than one classroom.
Oh, yeah,
How many kids are in each classroom? And that would be per teacher.
right,
Yeah.
Is there 7? Is there 20? How many?
right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, we
I-
can do that.
I
We
wrote-
have that number.
That wasn't
I
in
know you do.
No, that part
That
wasn't,
part
you're right. We only go by grade,
Yeah.
total number in grade, and that's roughly, I can say, around 100 in each grade, Kathy?
Yeah, about 100 per grade.
About 100 per grade.
I know what you
know.
look.
Yep,
We're
As long
just
as we're clear
clarifying,
on what I
yep,
yeah, and we're clarifying what you asked.
yeah.
All right. I've written it.
Hey, Robbie, you think it's working?
I've written it down.
I believe so. We're trying to save energy.
Well, it's working.
Yep.
I got it.
We can get them turned on, Mark.
You have the gentleman back here.
Yep, Paul?
Oh, we can open the door, you might get some air.
Paul?
The school board, you go to the school board, pass the budget, you send out for referendum. I think we got a postcard reminding us to go vote for it for us.
Yep.
How come that hasn't been done?
I don't think we've done that in a long time. I know we put out notification. We put out many notifications. We put out, it's on Facebook, it's on our website.
Yeah, we are sending home information to all. No, we're
No.
going to send it to all residents.
All residents.
Yeah, it's in draft and it will go in the mail next week, yes.
Yep. Yep. Yep, go ahead. No, you, ma'am.
So, because a lot of people will ask me questions, so say this is not passing, right? We already got the new boiler, that has to be fixed, so that's already done. Now, the roof, we're saying a couple of years, but like realistically, before any your work gets to what needs to be spent on the building this year, other than the boiler, if this doesn't pass? Do you guys
Well,
have that?
that's part of I know just in the two buildings alone, our regular maintenance and repairs, that line in the budget is what, Jonathan?
But that's already what we're spending, sorry, but that's
Right.
already spending no matter what, that's.
Well, up and above, we'll start talking about those projects.
So what I'm saying is that, do you guys have an idea of exactly what has to be done?
I would-
To
I-
open the schools in September if this doesn't go
The
through?
schools will open in September.
So they'll open, so if we don't
Right.
pass this on, the kids go to school.
The kids go to school, and we start talking about what projects
Okay.
we need to make those buildings viable for the future.
Okay, perfect, that's just, I just wanted to know
Right.
what happens with that.
We were
because
never
some
gonna,
of us don't
right, we
do
were
that.
never not gonna, because even if it passes, the new addition won't open until 2025.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So what I'm saying is like,
Kids still need
a
to go
lot
to
of
school.
times, I feel like some of us have, the way you guys been showing how this gonna show up, like you vote for this or da-da-da-da-da. Like that, or because it's never been given, a lot of us assume the worst, and we're thinking that means if you're not spending money on this, then tomorrow, we're gonna be spending money on the
It
roof,
was-
on
it
the
was-
floor,
it
on
was-
this and that. So if we're not
right.
spending any extra money other than what's budgeted in it this year, if this doesn't pass, schools are open, everything is
Yeah.
fine, everybody to school
I
fine.
can
and we
tell
see
you,
anything.
I can tell you that, and my perspective is that we'll have those discussions, and we're not gonna tackle any of those projects with this year's budget, because the money's not gonna be there.
Okay.
So the impact is gonna be in the next budget, which starts July 1st, 2023 to 2024. Now, what those projects are, in my mind, I would start at the top and work my way through. Because you have nothing if you don't have a roof. So you have to start, we would talk about those amongst us in the board, and whatever financing we come up with would have to go back out to the community to make that decision with a list of projects that we have deemed the most important.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
One other thing in regards to the timing of the vote, maybe the information wasn't available, but we did already vote for the school budget during our voting for our town selectmen.
Right.
Why was that not an option?
Well, it wasn't available at the time.
Okay.
We got the final number from the architect June 22nd at that informational meeting. That, from the time that we started, they had to do a study of what the building was going to be, the concept drawing, what kind of stuff would go into the building, and come up with an actual cost. We got that number, I actually got that number June 22nd at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And that night at the informational meeting, we posted that number. So,
That does seem a little bit rushed now, based on that information.
right,
That we haven't had, a little bit more input before
yeah,
the vote. But,
yep,
okay.
yeah. Anything else?
And I just also want to note that the majority of the board didn't hear that number until after we had signed the warrant. I
Right.
think it's important that the public knows that, because I'm hearing like, I don't believe that I'm Litchfield, I don't believe the Litchfield, folks are looking out for our best interests, know that we weren't informed of that number. We were operating under the assumption that it was going to be closer to like 16, 17 million, not the number.
Oops.
Anything else?
I think it's important to clarify too, with this $31 million number keeps getting thrown around, but you have to add 4.5% interest to that, so it's really like $58 million.
Sure.
It's 53 million.
53?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I know you mentioned 1.3 upkeep per year, so, I mean, 53 million, what's that, like 40 years worth of upkeep? I don't know.
It's about 30, or not even 30.
Yeah, so where are we gonna be in 30 years? I don't know.
Right, where are we gonna be in 30 years? We're gonna have, you know, those buildings are gonna have to be rehabbed again.
Right, but you're missing the point, but.
Right. Yep, absolutely. I know the middle school, when we built the middle school, was $9 million, and that was, Jessica, was that a 25-year bond for the middle school? It was 25, and that was 18 million before we get done paying it. Any mortgage. I mean, it's your home mortgage is astronomical if you look at it after 30 years. Doesn't make any difference.
Well, I'm just saying for, you know, so we're completely transparent with the public, so everybody knows.
Right.
31, it's not 31 or 32 million.
Yeah, it's never that. Anytime you borrow money, yeah. Anything else?
Is there any way, I guess this is probably a dumb question, but to push the vote back to November so
No.
everyone is informed? Why not?
No.
Because I feel like I'm hearing all these people chime in that, well, all my neighbors are on vacation, or all, so who's gonna vote?
You can vote absentee.
Yeah. I know
You can
that's
vote
weird
absentee.
things, but some people like to go in person, and if they're gone and you're sending this out, they're speaking they're on vacation, like, that was just my thought.
Well, the sad fact is, right? The sad fact is, okay, we voted in a $21 million budget at the budget meeting, and Gary was there with how many people, Gary? 30, if that?
Yep.
30 people.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah,
Yeah, there might be 30 people.
there might have been 30 people there.
As I know, the board didn't know it was 31 million till that night.
Right. Right. No, but I'm talking about the school. Yeah, but I'm talking about the school budget itself in May. The three communities passed a $21 million school
Oh, yeah, there
school
were,
budget.
There were 3 Litchfield residents that didn't have something to do with the town hall.
Right.
3.
Right. And that was after it had been advertised. That was after we had meetings, we had budget meetings, we had, you know. So I get it. I get it about the August 9th piece. But it was discussed at the board level that in order for the project to go out to bid, so we wouldn't be building in the middle of winter time, the time to go would be that August 9th number.
Well, just so you know, you're getting plenty of publications right now.
Great.
Trust me.
Great. That's exactly what I need. That's exactly why I wanted to have this meeting.
Has nothing to do with this meeting.
Go ahead, Paul.
What do you plan on breaking ground if it passes?
If it passes, it'll take a year to draw up the plans. We'll break ground actually in spring of 2024.
It goes out to bid next summer.
Right, next summer.
Yeah, so probably wouldn't break ground till the following.
Till the, yeah.
Yeah. They probably would
Right.
start work in the winter.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we limp all these buildings along.
Well, the building, we're hoping the building will be closed in by winter is what we're saying. Right. But it's planned to be opened in September of '25.
Right.
So, any other questions? Anybody online? No? All right. We'll move on then. Thank you. I think it was a great discussion. Yep. New business.
Okay.
7.1, discussion of a proposed addition of an assistant principal position at Oak Hill Middle School funded through ESSER 3 grant.
It should be ARP.
ARP, yeah.
They're usually interchangeable. People say ESSER 3 or ARP. It's American Rescue Grant. So going around talking with administrators, which I've really enjoyed visiting with them and seeing the buildings and talking about programming for students. And it is exciting to hear all the opportunities we have for our students. I mean, really incredible for a district this size to offer the amount of programming options is really amazing. So part of COVID money, what is ARP for? It's to help support the impact that happened with COVID. And so as in any district, I was in Augusta last year, the same things that we're struggling with substitutes or students with gaps in learning and transitioning back into school has had its challenges. So a lot of discussion, and very excited that Amy St. Pierre, who was the assistant principal for Oak Hill Middle School and Sabattis Primary, has stepped up to be the principal of both those schools. So in discussing the team structure there, she shared a lot of her work this year coming in was at Sabattis Primary School because there's needs at that school as well as the middle school. And so the middle school principal had a lot of demands at the middle school this year, and they have a dean of students. I also want to thank, we also had exciting news that Dustin Miles, who was the assistant principal for Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier, is stepping into the principal position for those two schools, which now opens 2 assistant principal positions, which we have been getting several applications. We're excited that we have had a really good response to those positions. Interviews are taking place to make sure that we have the support we need. So there are 2 positions in the general fund, which is the assistant principal position to be shared with Oak Hill Middle School and Sabattis Primary, and the other position to be shared with Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So then we discussed how can we really support the middle school and what's going on at the middle school, and hearing a lot of feedback around the middle school needing support. And those COVID funds are really to help get you back on your feet, get things back in place again to keep school moving forward. And so this is similar to the Dean of Students position, which is a COVID funded position at the middle school. So these are temporary positions. So we will be watching the data on the return on investment on these positions, because we're not just going to put them in and then not track, are they making the difference that we want them to be making in our schools. And so this position would be located at Oak Hill Middle School. And then the position, the general fund, would spend, we're looking at probably 80% of the time at Sabattis Primary. And Amy has a really good vision around how to make the 2 schools working together to support the work moving forward in those schools, and how to bring those leadership teams together to work effectively so that she can oversee and manage both buildings with the support of 2 assistant principals to help with, I think someone mentioned, teaching instruction, right? Curriculum instruction and getting time. It's hard when you're a principal and you're putting out fires, on a daily basis, to be in classrooms helping and supporting teachers, especially the number of new teachers we have coming on board. And these 2 folks, Amy and Dustin, are new into their principal's role, and we want to make sure they're successful in meeting the needs of the student, staff, and families. So it's very important that this is a priority, that this position go in. It's a discussion because as superintendent, using the COVID funds to best meet the student needs is a decision at that level. However, I think it's really important to be transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the staff is going to be tracking, where they're disciplined, and we're doing a lot of work on that in our retreat, administrative retreat, to help support students in their management of being back in school full time, the demands of that academics, and having that support. So this position is a 1 year. It's advertised as a 1 year position, and we hope we can fill it. Our number one priority is filling the 2 AP positions in the general fund, and then looking at the 1 year position. So I want to make you aware why we were doing it and how important it is, and we'll be reporting out with you to the board and the community how that is going throughout the year, so that you're up to date on what is that, how's that working, what are you seeing, what are the needs, and that's why we're going to bring that forward. Any questions on that?
Katie?
Yes.
What is the difference in job from the assistant principal to your, the other person that's
Dean?
working, to the dean?
The dean. So the dean is mostly student-centered in the RTI process, really doing those plans. The assistant principal can support that work, but is also helping to support the teacher evaluation so they can be more supervisory as well, and with support staff. So it gives an extra support to the principal and the dean in getting the work done.
So does your dean of student also do some of the SEL?
The social emotional work, yes.
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 Anything else?
What's the plan after the year? Are we gonna discuss whether or not we keep that, or
Yep.
immediately eliminate, or what?
Right, well, they're 1 year positions, so we will have to discuss at a board level is what is work, especially a lot of the what ifs, if the referendum goes, if the referendum doesn't go, those type of things. Are we going to close the school? We're not going to close the school. Or how are we going to support the buildings? There's a lot of discussion to happen. So we, as administrative team, we need to obviously show a return on investment if we want to bring one of those positions into the general fund, and whether we can afford that.
100% covers that position?
The what?
The grant?
The grant, 100%, yes.
And the data that you're tracking will be available when?
Correct, yes.
I can say that I was part of the first round of interviews on Monday. And what I have heard consistently from staff prior to that as well was how much, and we've heard it all last year as well at the board level, is how much support students and staff need on a consistent basis, and not having to constantly chasing we don't have an administrator today because they're here, and having to deal with whatever things are going on. So the whole point of this is to hopefully provide some very consistent support to everybody in the buildings. Yeah.
I have a student at Oak Hill Middle. I'm watching, I guess, all my interactions with Mr. Wilson was overwhelmed. That's a big job for one person.
Yep.
And I totally support having 2 assistants. So I think that's how the principal position could best be managed, is to have 2 support people in those 2 schools.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about the cost after the fact, because I just don't see would probably eliminate that position. But if it's free for a year, hey, why not?
Well, and that's one of the scenarios,
yeah,
Scott,
exactly.
we're going to have to talk about, because underneath the layout that we have now with those 2 schools, we have 2 administrators for 2 schools at the middle school in Sabattis, and then we have 2 administrators at the 2 schools in Litchfield. So, you can never be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I still think even in one school building, to have a grade span from 2 to 8, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
2 people, that position still
Well,
split it, almost have 2 in one
right.
school.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I would think underneath the addition scenario, we would keep the same amount of administrators, but have a principal for 2 to 4
Yeah.
I mean, a principal for 5 to 8 with an assistant, and a principal at Carrie Ricker with an assistant.
Right.
Right.
And like Ms. Hall was saying, the way this was originally presented, it really felt like two schools that are just kind of joined at the hip, right?
Right.
Different playgrounds, different schedules, different cafeterias, everything's completely different. They're just joined together. But
Right.
I agree on this position. I think the school needs it from
Yeah.
my interaction with the school. But how about we deal with secretary when we call? How about they answer the phone? Leave a message and it's 3 days, no response. To get through the school, you gotta buzz the nurse. She'll answer the phone every time to get to where you gotta go. That
I mean,
needs to be addressed.
as school secretaries are really busy, and sometimes they're not always sitting at the desk.
I could tell him that an angry father is coming on his way. I can't get a hold of anybody. He
That
can
is
be
not me.
headed
Let's
to
clarify
that. That's not him. That's not anything to do with us. I'm saying that situation happens.
Well,
We can't get a hold. I have to get the nurse to get someone to answer that phone.
I mean,
That is
maybe Kathy can
frustrating.
speak to it, but I assume that she's probably overwhelmed because the assistant principal is overwhelmed. and
Right.
it's sort of-
Yep.
Yeah,
It is. But that's not to solve the problem if someone goes there with something.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, right, and yeah, exactly,
It's not gonna
personnel.
solve the problem
So,
unless someone's
so
overwhelmed or not.
it's a new beginning, it's a new fresh start, and getting this position, I think, helps strengthen the team,
Yep.
and we're going to move forward. But any concerns, always, if you start at the lowest level, move up, and then you keep, discussing it. So our intent is to follow through and get back to you, and if we're not, you need to continue to communicate.
All right, any other questions?
Do you need a motion?
No,
No.
it's just discussion.
I just want to make aware and transparent, this is what's happening, and we'll be bringing that back to you.
All right, thank you. 8, no committee reports. 9, board member comments. Any? None?
I just want to thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Any opportunity to have open dialogue, for you to ask questions, for you to understand what's being put forth, but also to understand, I guess, just we don't take upon these decisions lightly. We really don't. And I appreciate the fact that you're all here. So thank you.
All right, nothing else? Well, I want to say thank you again. I think it was a very informative discussion, and I hope information got out that people were asking about. And we'll be sending out notices, and Katie took down notes tonight, so we'll make sure that those things get out into the community so they can make an informed decision. All right, thank you.
Somebody calling? No.
No.
No, just when everyone else left.
Oh.
Yep. So, without objection, the board declares the meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, it's all right. No problem. Yeah. Yeah.